Hey everyone, welcome back to Plot Unlocked. James Gunn's DC universe got off to an incredible start with Superman, leaving fans convinced that DC had finally turned things around. But now, the second chapter has arrived, and it's already dividing audiences and critics alike. Supergirl has officially landed, but instead of soaring to the same heights as Superman, the film has received a mixed response from critics, earning a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes, and raising serious questions about its box office future. So what exactly went wrong? Is Supergirl really as disappointing as some reviews claim, or are critics missing what the movie is trying to accomplish? From Millie Alcock's performance as Kara Zor-El and Jason Momoa's long-awaited debut as Lobo to the adaptation of the acclaimed Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow comic, there's a lot to unpack. While some reviewers are praising the emotional performances and action, others point to several recurring problems that prevented the movie from reaching its full potential. So today, we're breaking down the biggest reasons behind Supergirl's mixed reviews, what critics are saying, and whether these issues could affect the future of James Gunn's new DC universe. Let's get into it. After becoming one of the few standout stars of the old DCEU as Aquaman, Jason Momoa's return to DC as Lobo was one of Supergirl's biggest selling points, and for many fans, he absolutely delivers. Across most reviews, critics agree that Momoa perfectly captures the spirit of Lobo. His wild personality, over-the-top energy, brutal action, and comic-accurate attitude make him one of the film's most entertaining characters. Nearly every scene he's in leaves a strong impression, making him an instant fan favorite. The problem isn't Lobo himself, it's how he's used in the story. Despite stealing the spotlight with explosive action sequences and hilarious one-liners, many critics feel his role doesn't meaningfully contribute to Kara's emotional journey. Instead, he often feels disconnected from the movie's central narrative. With Supergirl already facing criticism over its pacing and story structure, Lobo's extended screen time only adds to that issue. While he's undeniably fun to watch, several reviewers believe the film spends too much time on him without giving Supergirl's own character arc the attention it deserves. In the end, Momoa delivers exactly what fans hoped for, but the script doesn't give his character enough purpose beyond being an entertaining scene stealer. Supergirl draws its inspiration from Tom King's acclaimed Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow comic, keeping many of its core elements intact. Ruthie remains Kara's traveling companion, Krem serves as the primary villain, and Krypto's poisoning is still the event that sends Supergirl on her galaxy-spanning mission. However, while the film follows the comic's overall storyline, many critics argue that it fails to capture the heart and atmosphere that made the original story so memorable. A major part of the comic's appeal came from Bilquis Evely's breathtaking artwork, which transformed every planet and alien world into something vibrant, imaginative, and unforgettable. As a space adventure, Supergirl had the opportunity to showcase a visually spectacular universe. Instead, one of the most common criticisms in early reviews is that the movie's visuals feel surprisingly muted. Many reviewers describe the environments as overly gray, brown, and lacking the colorful creativity expected from an intergalactic journey. Considering the rich source material the film is adapting, this has become one of the biggest disappointments for critics. Rather than fully embracing the stunning cosmic landscapes that help define Woman of Tomorrow, many feel the movie settles for a much less visually exciting experience. Superhero fatigue continues to be one of the biggest challenges facing Marvel, DC, and every major comic book franchise. With so many superhero films releasing each year, audiences expect every new project to offer something fresh, instead of repeating ideas they've already seen. According to many early reviews, that's where Supergirl struggles the most. While James Gunn's previous superhero films, including Superman and Guardians of the Galaxy Vol. 3, were praised for bringing unique storytelling, emotional depth, and memorable visuals, critics feel Supergirl doesn't reach the same level of originality. Several reviewers point out that the movie borrows familiar ideas, visual styles, and story beats from earlier Marvel and DC films without adding enough of its own identity. One of the most common comparisons is to Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy series, with some critics describing Supergirl as a less distinctive version of those cosmic adventures. Rather than carving out its own place within the new DC universe, many believe the film relies too heavily on elements audiences have already experienced elsewhere. As a result, one of the biggest criticisms is that Supergirl never fully establishes itself as something truly unique, leaving some viewers wishing it had taken more creative risks. James Gunn's Superman carried enormous expectations as the first film in the new DC universe. Featuring one of DC's most iconic heroes, the movie needed to prove that the franchise was heading in the right direction, and for many fans and critics, it did exactly that. The film became both a critical and commercial success, earning strong praise for its storytelling, performances, and hopeful vision of Superman. Because Supergirl is the second chapter of the DCU and directly spins off from Superman, comparisons between the two movies were inevitable. Unfortunately for Supergirl, many critics believe it doesn't reach the same standard established by Gunn's film. A common opinion across reviews is that Supergirl lacks the confidence, emotional impact, and consistent storytelling that made Superman such a strong launch for the franchise. While the movie has entertaining moments and impressive action, many reviewers feel it never fully comes together as a complete experience. Perhaps the biggest criticism is how the film leaves audiences feeling afterward. Where Superman concluded by building excitement and optimism for the future of the DC universe, many critics argue that Supergirl finishes without creating that same level of anticipation. Instead of leaving viewers eager for the next chapter, the film has been described as a less memorable follow-up that struggles to maintain the momentum established by the DCU's first movie. One of the most common criticisms aimed at Supergirl focuses on Ana Nogueira's screenplay. That has drawn extra attention, because she's already attached to some of the DC Universe's biggest upcoming projects, including the highly anticipated Wonder Woman reboot and a new Teen Titans movie. Many critics argue that Supergirl's script lacks focus, making Kara Zor-El's emotional journey feel less impactful than it should. Although the film repeatedly suggests that Kara is a deeply conflicted and complex character, reviewers feel the screenplay never fully explores those layers, leaving her development incomplete. Another frequent complaint is that the movie doesn't capture the emotional heart or grand sense of adventure that made Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, such a beloved comic. While the film follows many of the source material's major story beats, several critics believe it misses the emotional depth and epic scope that defined Tom King's original story. Reviewers have also pointed to inconsistencies in Kara's moral choices throughout the film, particularly regarding her attitude toward violence. At different points in the story, her actions seem to contradict the lessons she's trying to teach others, making parts of her character arc feel uneven. Combined with the screenplay's pacing issues, these criticisms have become some of the biggest reasons many reviewers feel Supergirl falls short of its full potential. Supergirl tells a much heavier and more emotionally driven story than most previous versions of Kara Zor-El. Rather than following the traditional origin fans are familiar with, the film presents a darker interpretation of Krypton's destruction, giving Kara a far more traumatic past that shapes who she becomes. From the beginning, the movie establishes Kara as a deeply conflicted character. As she travels across the galaxy with Ruthie, she's forced to confront difficult moral choices while helping a young girl driven by revenge. On paper, it's the foundation for a powerful emotional journey. However, many critics argue that the film doesn't give Kara's tragic backstory enough time to fully resonate. Instead of allowing those emotional moments to develop naturally, reviewers feel the movie moves through them too quickly, preventing some of its biggest dramatic scenes from having the impact they were meant to deliver. The film's tone has also divided critics. Kara is often portrayed as rebellious, sarcastic, and frequently intoxicated after visiting red sun planets, an approach intended to highlight her emotional pain. While some viewers may appreciate this more flawed interpretation of the character, many reviewers felt the edgy, self-destructive personality didn't always work, making it harder to emotionally connect with her throughout the story. One of the biggest factors that can make or break a superhero movie is its villain, and according to many critics, that's another area where Supergirl falls short. The film's main antagonist, Krem of the Yellow Hills, has been widely criticized for failing to leave a lasting impression. Many reviewers describe Krem as a generic villain whose design lacks personality, with some even comparing his appearance to a background alien from the Guardians of the Galaxy films rather than the central threat of a major DC movie. Critics also point to inconsistent characterization throughout the film. At times, Krem is presented as a ruthless and intimidating killer capable of terrifying acts of violence. In other scenes, however, the movie leans into a more comedic portrayal, making it difficult to understand exactly what kind of villain he is supposed to be. Because the film never fully commits to one clear interpretation of the character, many reviewers felt Krem lacked the presence and depth needed to challenge Kara in a memorable way. As the primary antagonist of Supergirl's first solo movie in years, critics were expecting a far more compelling villain, making Krem one of the movie's biggest disappointments. Finally, most critics agree that Supergirl's VFX looks rough. That said, the third act CGI and backgrounds have easily come out as the biggest source of complaints. The film was even compared to Ezra Miller's The Flash, which is one of the most panned superhero films ever when the topic is CGI, as the 2023 DCEU movie's multiverse cameo sequence clearly showcases. The VFX in Supergirl's third act is said to distract from the movie's climactic final action sequence, with characters standing on noticeably fake backgrounds, and so on. All those reasons have contributed to Supergirl's reviews currently standing on the negative side, though its Rotten Tomatoes score could fluctuate after the movie is released. That said, they should help fans understand where Supergirl stands. And that's our complete breakdown of why Supergirl has become one of the most talked about superhero movies of the year. It's fascinating because this isn't a movie that's receiving the same reaction from everyone. Some viewers are praising Millie Alcock's performance, Jason Momoa's scene-stealing Lobo, and the emotional themes at the heart of Kara's story. Others feel the script, visuals, villain, and overall execution stop the film from reaching the heights of Superman. That's exactly why the conversation surrounding this movie has become so interesting. But now the spotlight shifts to the fans. As more people watch Supergirl, will audiences embrace it more than critics did? Or will the mixed reviews prove to be an accurate reflection of the movie? And perhaps the biggest question of all, what does this mean for the future of James Gunn's DC universe? I'd genuinely love to hear your thoughts. So head down to the comments and let me know. Did Supergirl exceed your expectations? Disappoint you? Or do you think it's simply being judged too harshly? Let's have a real discussion. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more videos covering the latest DC, Marvel, movie breakdowns, ending explained videos, Easter eggs, hidden details, and superhero news, be sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, stay curious, keep watching great movies, and I'll see you in the next video.